got his degree at UVA, didn't he? He was at Virginia, and then I think he went to Miami.
We are meeting as two individuals, not just as an interrogator and an interrogatee.
Yeah.
And the same thing is,
You are KGB, I am CIA.
exactly, yes, exactly.
They do.
But I like to tell my students, and I tell them every time, first day I work in class, two things. I tell them first, every time you think you know the answer to a problem, the time has come to us to be convinced once again. And second, I tell them, every professor could tell you to remember what he says. Drop the course. A professor should not tell you the truth. He should challenge your mind. That's why I left Europe, to come here to speak my mind.
Interesting, interesting. Your stuff about what's going on in Central and Eastern Europe, I think, is,
Well, thank you.
for an American, that's a revelation.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Was it a surprise to you when you did your research on that?
You know, we are all ideological in the sense of choosing the topic we want to discuss. But what that makes difference between ideology and science is how you proceed. You know, I will choose to talk about growth. A more liberal guy will choose to talk about income distribution. But that is, what's important is what we do with the topic. If you simply use it to prove your point, that's not science.
And you have to check your assumptions as you do this. Like liberal guys do certain things.
They don't check assumptions.
Maybe we do, maybe we don't.
They don't check assumptions. My answer to that is that they come with facts and they come with prejudices.
We all do.
Together we better indoors.
We read your work, so we knew we were not taking a big risk in meeting you. We knew there was going to be something here. So do you want to jump ahead to your current theories, or do you want?
No, you have to go ahead with your question.
Well, the question is, how does self-interest regulate the economy?
The self-interest is not greed. Self-interest economics means simply, whenever you face a choice, you tend to choose the alternative which you think will give you more satisfaction, which is consistent with the basic human behavior since the first man walked the earth, desire for more. Now, choosing more does not mean choosing more money. It's choosing more satisfaction. For some people, it's money. For some people, it's good life. For some people, it's helping the neighbor. But how does it happen? As we all choose. Whenever you make a choice, sir, you are actually entering into contract with somebody else who is also making a choice. All right? And as human beings interact with each other over various issues, they create, through their interaction, an order, spontaneous order, that no individual can predict ahead of time, because it's the outcome of millions of human interactions. And therefore, no planner, no bureaucrat can produce the outcome.
Or guarantee the outcome.
Yeah.
Right.
That is consistent with the sum total of individual preference. It was the time when many young people were taken with the idea of changing the world, doing something good for the society, for this universe, going to a Peace Corps. I got called to go to Texas A&M University. At A&M, they wanted just to finish the school and make money. And I loved it. The only way you can serve society is by trying to make money, because only if you make, how much money you make is an index of how well you are serving society. Because you cannot make money unless people are willing to pay for what you're doing. If I make twice as much as you, somebody out there thinks that my work is twice as important as yours. The money is a sign of recognition that you are providing a social service. And when you go to do Peace Corps, you are not providing. Whom do you serve? If that kind of activity was profitable, you would not need to be supported by taxpayer. So you are again asking taxpayer, who is instead of spending money to feed his baby, has to give you money to go to Nigeria, to spend 2 years there, to be sick most of the time, and then come back making absolutely no difference. Neither you lost 2 years, and those people there are no better off than they were when you came.
But then for society as a whole, for the whole of any area of the United States, in order for it to be a world I want to inhabit, I have to assume that a sufficient number of individuals are going to make a choice that advances the collective good.
Wait a moment. The fact that you know what you want does not oblige the rest of the country
No, of course
to
not.
produce what you want.
No.
You have the choice to vote with your feet, as I did. Every community has its rules of the game. And when we join the community, we do so because we like the rules of the game.
Right.
And
we're willing to live within them.
yeah, and therefore some people choose to live in Utah, some people choose New York, some people choose to be Mormons, some prefer to be Southern Baptist. Why? Because the rules of the game are more to their liking.
Got it.
And if you are disappointed in one set of the rules, you have two choices: either to start revolution, become dictator, and force the community to do as you please, or to leave the community and try to find a place that you like better.
I just got excited because I heard you getting the Choices lecture.
And you like the Choices lecture?
I remember that from when I was like 11.
When you were 11?
Sorry.
Uh-huh.
So I'm 11.
But what is this? But what is this business about the economy of not your income? What is
My
it?
allowance?
Your allowance.
Well, he just economized on it as much as possible.
This was tied to the rule of law
See-
thing,
see-
right?
I have to tell you this. I told you what I think of macroeconomics.
Yes, you did.
I
didn't know what
actually-
I didn't understand anything you said, but you did tell me, yes.
Well, I told you that's a witchcraft. And I
Oh,
paid
now
no
I
attention to that. And then she had an exam.
No,
Take home.
I brought home, not exam, I just brought home a homework assignment.
She asked me to do it.
And I
His
asked,
daughter doesn't want to do math.
And I got 81.
she got a B minus.
She got 81.
I love it.
81. Nice.
Well, at least you didn't get an F.
I couldn't believe it. But I never had a high school test in economics, and I'm full professor, got 81.
Well, what does that say to you?
Tells me that I don't know about macroeconomics. And I was proud, actually. I was surprised I did so well.
The road to capitalism, you said, is bumpy. You took that road from Yugoslavia, which was not capitalism, to American capitalism. I want to understand that pathway that you took. Growing up in a socialist country, you're a slave, you're not a free person. You cannot decide what to study, you cannot decide where to live, you cannot decide which doctor you go to. You cannot even decide where you spend your vacation. You receive vouchers where to go. So really, you are not really a slave because they don't beat the hell out of you, but you are a slave in the sense that you can make no choices. We had a beautiful apartment, but we were upper middle class, which means Where was this?
In Belgrade.
Belgrade. Uh-huh.
A colonel in the Tito's party came one day and told us to get lost. We were kicked out of the apartment. We had 3 days to clear out because he liked the place. There was nothing I could do. There was no place to appeal.
Well, how old were you then?
I was in the senior high school. I was 19 years old.
19 years old.
And then I was ready for university.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to be a doctor. So I went to sign up for medical school, and I was told I cannot study medicine because of my bourgeois background.
Your bourgeois background.
Then I said I want to be engineer. The same thing. So I literally asked them, what can I do?
Yeah.
And I was told that I should study law. The reason was very simple. The law did not matter in the communist Yugoslavia. You know, the party was the law. So all the enemies of the people were sent to study the law because it was useless.
So the experience in Yugoslavia did not influence your intellectual understanding of the world or growth, or
No,
did?
but he had one tremendous upside, which was unintentional, really. People were going to jail because they owned property. People who owned lots of property, they were losing their lives. And peasants were losing their land. It was collectivized, following the Stalin's model. So I went to, the property right was a bad word. You don't use it. It was almost a road to jail. Then I went to study law, and the first course I had to take was the Roman law. Entire Roman law is built on the private property rights. So I was now in the communist Yugoslavia, hating the damn system, and I was reading about property rights that nobody else in the country was free to mention. And I was reading it by punishment because they would not let me study anything else. So when I left Yugoslavia, I find it very useful because I knew something. Many of my cohorts who also left Yugoslavia, who did not study law, they simply did not have any way of connecting with the West. I had it.
When you're on campus, you'll notice there are all kinds of things.
What do you
on
like
the
to do when
sidewalks.
you're not thinking about
Cost ban.
profound thoughts with respect to the economy?
I watch football.
You watch football?
Yes.
Good.
He likes World Cup playoffs. Games.
Soccer and football. Actually, I love football. And I hate spring because
I know it's terrible.
it's terrible. I mean, what do you do on Sundays?
Well, I do reruns.
Every social activity has two levels, the rules and the interaction within the rules. Right. So you have football games, you have the rules, you cannot hit quarterback in the head. All right. And then you have the game, he can throw the ball. The players know how to prepare for the game. The coaches know how to coach players. And you and I, when we pay tickets to watch the game, we know what we are going to be watching. Now, suppose there is a game, and the Cowboys are on the, do you understand football? You do.
I certainly do.
They are on the goal line.
They're playing the 49ers.
They're
and
playing
the 49ers
49ers.
are winning.
And they are no. I'm talking, so I can write. They are on the goal line. They just use the fourth down,
Right.
and they don't make it. And then the coach goes to the referee and says, look, these boys, they really work so hard to prepare for the game. Give them one more down. Don't laugh. That's what's give them one more down. What he's saying, change the rules.
Yes, he is.
And suppose the referee does. The way Obama gave one more down to General Motors.
He gave one more down to who?
To General Motors.
General Motors, yes.
He goes then and they try the one more down and they make it. They win the game. General Motors leaves. What happened now? Yes, the Cowboys won the game. And they go home happy. But for the next week, they are really not sure how to prepare for the game.
Yeah.
You and I will not know exactly what we are going to be watching next week. And you know what else? The owner will not hire coaches who can prepare players. They will hire coaches who can talk to referees into change the game. We call it lobbying, right? You win the game today, but you destroy the game tomorrow because rules are not stable.
So he should have just let them go bankrupt.
Unfortunately, yes. Same as Cowboys should have lost the game. Anytime you change the rules, you're going to change the game. Who changes the rules? Under what conditions? And how do you know that a change is going to make the game better? Those become critical issues for economic analysis. I say capitalism is a way of life. I'm saying that capitalism is a not economic system. It's a legal system that has economic implications.
And social and political implications.
Yeah, but I'm interested in economic implications.
Okay.
Now, the purpose, the function of law is not justice, really. It's more predictability. Because if I know that by breaking the law, I'm going to be punished, that law predicts. If I know that my property is, that my rights are going to be enforced, and I know if you cheat on me, you are going to go to jail, I can enter into exchange with you. I don't have to worry about whether you are an honest person or not. I know that you have to behave as if you were honest. Otherwise, you go to jail.
Then how do we bring about justice or fairness in a society? If we can't bring about through the law, we can't bring about
No. It does not say the law is not just. I'm simply saying that you don't claim that the law should. If the law is the result of evolutionary process through trial and error, and what happened? Different outcomes are tried. Some are working better than others. They are selected to be repeated, right? So you have continuous repetition of rules that have been successful. And they become eventually institutionalized into what we call precedent and law. So they are just in this sense. If they were not just, they would not have survived test of time.
Where did you meet, you and your wife?
I went to a party. A woman came to me and said, "Are you Pejovich?" I said, "Yes." She said, "I just read your book." And I said, "My God." And I said, "Are you an economist?" She said, "No, I'm a musician." She didn't know what Yugoslavia is. I mean, there was a country someplace. Where exactly, we don't know. And then she introduced me to her colleagues, and they asked her, "Who is that guy?" And the answer was, "A sophisticated peasant from the Balkans." Within 2 months, she left the sophisticated out. It became only the peasant from the Balkans.
She is a musician, and you are an economist. You're like live in two separate worlds. Is that good, bad? Doesn't make a difference?
I mean, do you realize what you're doing? She is going to see the tape, right?
Right.
Now, what do you think I can tell? The truth?
Well, I'm hoping so.
No, I have to answer.
No, you don't.
Because
yes.
She gave me and her colleagues introduced me to a side of life which I never knew before. I have to say I would never get into trying to bring together law and culture and the effect of culture on the economy if it were not that she told me do it, but simply through my association with her colleagues. It became more and more obvious to me that culture really matters. It does affect the way we perceive environment, and once you understand that, you have to draw the conclusion, which that if culture changes the way you perceive the environment, it does change your decisions. Now, be careful. If the laws are in tune with customs, the community will function quite well, because what the law is telling us to do is what we are inclined to do to begin with. There is a harmony. If there is a conflict between the rules and customs, you have a problem. What happened in Russia? When the communists came, they imposed totally different set of rules. And yet, people then withdrew away and lived by their customs within small extended family units. They built sort of a Chinese wall between themselves and the state. They had to obey the state, not to offend the state, but within their own small communities, they live by their own rules, because the only rules they could accept were those informal rules. So what's the difference between constitutional democracy and a dictatorship? In a constitutional democracy, the rules imposed by the state are going to be in tune with the customs. And that's what happened in America.
Do you see connection between yourself as a father and as a husband and your world of economics?
In a way I do, because I always think of everything in terms of opportunity cost.
Okay.
Because it's right.
Okay. Think of everything in terms of opportunity.
Now, you
cost.
see
Would your wife like that? Would you think
No.
of her as opportunity and cost?
But she is. Did you remember what he was telling you about the
Yes, about
pathways?
the pathways. People who were important in your life.
Oh, yeah, very.
Yeah. So I want to hear about you and what it was about him that
You will.
No, this way.
This way. Very important to know which way you're going in life. You know that, don't you?
Do you know what I mean by opportunity cost?
No, that's why I'm asking you to explain.
You see, opportunity cost is probably one of the most important terms in economics. It means whenever you make a choice, I can identify what you have given up. If you choose to drink, if you are thirsty and you choose to drink Coke, you do give up Dr. Pepper. Every time you do something, when you produce a car, you use bundle of resources that could be used to produce something else. That something else is the cost of producing the car. Opportunity cost, meaning the best foregone alternative.
Oh, foregone alternative, right, okay.
There does not exist such thing as not having an alternative.
Everybody has an alternative to do something.
For what you have done now, don't tell me there was absolutely nothing else you could have done. Of course there was.
Right.
There is no such thing as no choice. But what you have is that sometimes people, the government or some other authority prevents you from making your choices. Mm-hmm. I did have a choice in communist Yugoslavia, but I was never able to exercise them. There is a book written by two professors. The book is called The Not So Wild, Wild West. It's probably the funniest book because what the book shows, when the pioneers went to the West, they got to the West long before the government got there. And they had to organize their life in the absence of government. They discovered gold in Nevada, in California. They discovered minerals in part of the West. And yet there was no government to tell them how to exploit those. So what did they do? They would get together and they decided, how do you establish your claims, stakes? And then they also decided how to resolve the disputes. And then they decided that new people who come in could join the community if and only if they accept those rules. So they created, in effect, property rights in the right to exploit minerals long before the state came to do it for them. And it worked. It worked so well. When Nevada became part of the United States, the same rules were institutionalized into laws. So what you have here, a very important evidence that in order to have a spontaneous order, to have order in the community, you don't need a state. You simply need a freedom of contract and the enforcement of those contracts.
Well, because they realized that the chaos that would accrue, the horror that would result from a total lack of agreement as to who can do what where, who has the right to dig here, who doesn't have the right, who has the right to take what they dug there, that all of those required an overarching rules.
Yeah, I will, as economists, I will say the same thing, agree with you, but I will put differently. I will say they realize transaction cost of not reaching an agreement were too high relative to benefits.
Right.
The important lesson, the American West is the best lab the world has ever given us, that you can have harmonious society, establish the rules of the game without the government.
Okay, now let's continue talking about mining. So now there are miners, big corporations coming in, and the government says, but you're really doing it on federal land. This land really does belong to you and me. Now my question is, should the mining companies be paying a more fair share for the profit they're taking out of this land? Or should we just say, no, they bought the land, they bought the mineral rights, therefore they don't owe the government anything?
Let's put it this way. If you want the country to be better off,
Which I do.
you have to ask yourself, who is going to spend that $1 better? I think it could be argued on purely logical grounds, leave empirical evidence out, that I am much more likely to be careful how I spend my dollar than I'm going to be careful how I spend your dollar. So I will argue that if I leave the dollar to the miner, it's going to be spent better than if I give to a bureaucrat who does not bear the cost of who does not capture the benefits from spending it.
But does it have to be either or? I guess
But it is either or.
See, that's
Every dollar that you spend in for one purpose is $1 less available for something else.
Let's take an early lunch break so we can come back.
Since 12 o'clock is early lunch break.
Old men have to get up and move, huh? Want to get up?
No, I prefer
You prefer not to get up?
Well, if I get up.
Then I can't get down again?
Yeah.
I'm lucky when I get down, I can get up again. What things do you grapple with? I mean, is it all, you know all the answers?
My age.
All right, well, that's not a joke. That's not a joke.
No, it's not a joke.
That's
I
not a
do
joke.
grapple with age.
You know what we are? I'll tell you what we are. What we are is aging boys. And the problem for an aging boy is
Never matured.
never, and really has no inclination or instinct or impulse in the direction of maturation.
It must be boring to be mature.
Well, I think that's it. No, but you know, except you become a little child, you can't get into the heaven. That's a biblical verse. I know you don't know that. But that's not being childish.
Yeah.
It's having the capacity to take delight in discovery which exists, the possibilities of which exist everywhere.
Yeah.
I can discover in you something that you may not even know yourself.
That I would like to know.
But see, that's it.
About heaven, you see, if I have to behave in certain ways in order to find myself in heaven, I would like to speak to somebody who could be there before to find out is it worth it.
See, you're tyrannized by data. You're tyrannized by the fact. So if you were going to go into business, what kind of business would you go into?
If I would go to business,
Yeah.
I never did. I never did anything. I never even did consulting, which was most of my colleagues do. You know.
Yes, of course.
I simply am academic man.
Yeah,
When I have free time, I read.
yeah. But academics tend to be rather
see-
hard
you see.
on people who disagree with them, don't they?
I would not generalize. I would feel bored if I didn't have people who disagree with me.
Yeah,
You know. But I hate arguments with people who have made up their mind.
yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
that's totally empty.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
You simply exchange opinions without hearing each other. That's
Right.
what. But I mean, what's the purpose of doing research unless you
Yeah.
exchange with those
Yeah.
who do not see the way you do?
Right.
Well, American Dad, it doesn't call it the engines.
unlike Al Gore, who is more often wrong than right, in my judgment. I'm talking about economics, not his politics. Who talks about we have to preserve environment. When you cut the tree, it is not true that you destroy a good. You simply change the use of a resource. Instead of having more wildlife, you can have more furniture, you can have more cars, you can have more homes. So if the tree, as any other resource, has alternative uses, the issue is when is the proper time to cut the tree? If you cut it today, you can sell lumber for $100. If you keep it alive, it grows by 20%. So next year, if you cut the lumber and you sell, you can get $120. Now, if the rate of interest is less than 20%, you will keep it growing, not because you love the tree, but because it's your self-interest. And as long as the rate of growth of that tree is in excess of the rate of interest, you are going to keep the tree growing. You have no interest as the owner to cut it. You'll destroy your own wealth. Once the rate of interest that you can get from investing money is higher than the annual rate of growth of the tree, the rate of interest is say 10% and tree grows by 8%, then you're losing money if you keep it alive. Then you want to cut and put in the money in the bank and get 10% rather than 8%. So from your point of view, that's the optimal time. But that's optimal time from the point of view of society. Why? Because the rate of interest is the social rate at which society is exchanging present for the future. And society as a whole is saying, look, if the tree stays alive, the wealth of the nation will increase by 8%. If the owner cuts the tree and put money in the bank or invest, the wealth of the nation now as a whole will increase by 10%. It is time from the social point of view, to cut the tree. So the answer is very simple. Only the private property rights creates incentives that will make people decide to cut the tree when it's optimal from the social point of view.
So what do I do, or what should be done, I guess is the way to phrase it, when you own in your land that you just bought a very ancient sequoia tree, which took 1,000 years to grow, whatever those giant sequoias in California take to grow. Do you simply make a decision based on monetary value?
If it is my tree, I don't have to. If it is worth to...
It's your tree. You bought the property, it's your tree.
Then the value I derive from things I owned have two components, monetary components and non-monetary component. Together, they represent what I consider to be my wealth. To think only of the monetary component is very primitive economics. So I would say that most people will preserve. But suppose now that my daughter is dying of cancer. And suppose that my daughter now I need money to pay for cure, which I know will keep her alive. At that point, the non-monetary value of that tree will become zero.
Yeah. So we lose the tree.
Yep. We don't. We keep a human life. We don't lose the tree. The tree will be converted into... Again, you don't lose the tree. You change the use of the tree.
Well, but you also lose it. It's no longer in existence. It has been transformed.
Yeah, but what we have in existence now is something that was not in existence before. More furniture, more homes.
That's true, but we've lost the tree.
You've read Hayek. What was the first reaction to his book? Did you read it back
I
then?
read as a student at Georgetown.
Right.
His Road to Serfdom.
Right.
And I thought it was great.
You did.
It was really...
What made it great?
Well, because I lived for 12 years in communist country. So suddenly I read about what he was saying is going to look like. And he was right. It did look like. If you never had the right to choose what to do, you cannot even imagine what it means. You know, I was treated back in, everybody in socialism, you're treated like domesticated animal. You are fed, you are taken care of, you are put in the, you have a good vet comes to look after you, you know, free. Suddenly I was responsible for myself. And boy, that was great. My parents were here, the factory workers, they were intellectuals back home, they were factory workers here.
Did you have any thoughts about that? Your parents were intellectuals in Yugoslavia.
That made me hate socialism even more.
No, wait a minute. They were intellectuals there.
They could not be intellectuals here because they had no skills.
Oh, I see.
My mother was teacher, and she came here, could not speak one word. My father was a accountant. Well, the accounting system is totally different. So they worked on the assembly line in factory. But I saw them happy because they were doing the best they could. And then I went to university. I went to Georgetown. I discovered I have to pay tuition. My parents could not help me a little, so I had 2 jobs. I literally, and I used dictionary to translate lessons. And I had 2 jobs. In a department store, working in the stockroom, carrying stuff, literally. And after 6 months, the professor came to me and said, we couldn't believe what you're doing, so we decided to give you scholarship. I didn't know what it means. When he said scholarship, I asked him, what's that? He said, you don't have to pay tuition.
Wait a minute, you've come from a country where limited, true, but you got a free college education. Mm-hmm. It cost you nothing. You didn't have to work 2 jobs in Yugoslavia to go to the university.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
So you come to a country where your parents have to take menial jobs, even though they're intellectuals and they're very bright. There's no government support for them. There's no government support for you. Did you, just as you resented the limitations imposed on you under socialist rule, did you not at all resent the limitations imposed on you by the capitalist rule?
Absolutely not. First of all, I think your statement, to begin with,
I'm sorry, what?
your statement about free education is incorrect. Education is not free, it's simply that somebody else pays for me.
Okay.
Somebody who does not even know me, who has to work in the factory 8 hours a day, and he has his money taken away to support me instead of leaving money to him to buy milk for his kids. I'm sorry. I find it very, very resentful to have free education under those conditions.
Well, you may, but
I do.
But you got. Oh, well, all right. That's all right. You may not like that, but in fact, you were the beneficiary of a free education. You didn't have to pay for your education.
No.
True, another individual chose to pay for your education.
That's even not true, because I had to pay for my education because first I could not choose what I want to learn.
Oh, you're talking about in Yugoslavia.
Sure, I did not. I had no choice, and that's a heavy payment to make.
Right.
Because it's not only that you are not paying for it, somebody else is choosing your career and the rest of your life. That is much worse than working 2 jobs and paying for what you want to learn.
Okay. Now, students are sitting around this table.
Yeah.
They are listening to you.
Pretending.
What is your, theoretically,
Yeah.
hopefully, what is your obligation to them? Now, you're just an individual. Do you have any obligation to them?
I have to repeat what I said.
Well, repeat it.
There is only one obligation, to make them different when they leave the place. I never require students to attend the class. I told them that it is part of the contract. If they prefer to spend time drinking beer, they should be free to do so. But they bear the cost. And the cost, if I'm a good teacher, would be a lower grade. If I'm not a good teacher, they should not be here anyway. I sort of still see the community, whether it's community Dallas, United States, in this classroom, as the group of people who come in and leave pursuing their self-interest.
Right.
They come in because they think they're going to gain something. They leave because they thought they made the wrong decisions.
Right.
And that freedom to come and leave is the most essential part of liberty.
Right. So you don't have a lot of sympathy with empathy, not sympathy, empathy with groups. You would not join a church, or you would not join a football team.
I am a citizen of the United States. I joined the United States. I joined, but I will join only under conditions that I can leave.
Yeah.
Because then it is the freedom of exit that makes the whole lot of difference.
Let's go in and continue our conversation.
I think there is nothing more human than to reward people for performance. That's how I see it. We are told today that we have the biggest economic problem since Depression. Right. It's stupid. It's a lie. If you look, you remember, you were old enough, these people are young, but you were old enough to remember 1978, 79. Double-digit interest rate, double-digit inflation, double-digit lower rate of growth, and double-digit unemployment. None of this is present today. None. And we are saying it's the worst since 1930s. That's a plain and adulterated lie. It could become worse, but it's not as of now. Okay. Today we are talking about bailouts, spending billions. What Reagan did, he simply cut the taxes. He did nothing else. He did two things. He reduced the spending and he increased defense expenditures. Right. But if you look at Reagan's budget deficit carefully, now I'm speaking from memory, so I could be slightly wrong, but I think the total increase in defense spending under Reagan was greater than deficit, which means that he actually reduced social spending. Yeah. Rather than bail out. He did just the opposite. And he reduced taxes. Within 2 years, we had growth. We have inflation was down, interest was down, unemployment was down, and the economy was growing for the next 20 years. Unless you really have some people who are the most productive, free to accumulate the wealth, the rest of us are going to be poor because the wealth has to be created before you can distribute.
Well, that's true. That's true. But
and the government does not create wealth. It can only distribute wealth.
Right. And the question is, to what degree should any institution have control over the distribution?
You can always distribute what we have produced any way you want.
Right.
So the government could always distribute what we have produced. But the question then is, what do we do to incentive to produce more tomorrow? If you distribute what we have now, if you take away from those who are productive and give to those who are not productive, you are tomorrow going to hurt not only productive people,
everybody.
You are going to hurt everybody.
Of course. So you're in charge. What would you have done?
I would have done what Reagan has done. I would have reduced only marginal taxes, and I would let the economy find the bottom itself. Because once we get to the lowest point, the economy will come back. It's a very vital economy, ours. I think the problem the economy has now, we don't know what the bottom is because the government changes the rules from one day to another.
I know you're willing to be argued with, but the point is that what you think and what these kids think, that's the transaction. That's the rules of the game that they understand are different than the rules of the game you understand.
Yes.
And they need to understand the rules of the game. Is that what you're saying? That's one of the many things you're saying?
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's what we teach them.
Yeah.
We don't teach them how to play the game, but the rules.
Right.
Then they play the game the best they can.
Right. And why should they learn?
If you are going to play the game, you have to have rules, otherwise there will be no game. So the question is how to define the rules which make the game interesting and yet do not restrict the ingenuity of the players. It's a very difficult line to draw. And if you think there is a solution, no. What is good for me is not necessarily good for you. I love to be in a community in which if I make wrong decisions, I bear the cost. You like to be in the community in which you have some sort of collective insurance. I like medical care in which I work for my medical care and I get what I'm willing to pay for. You prefer social medical care. I cannot say you are right or wrong, but I tell you the consequences. I tell you that in your case, there will be rationing, that people will wait 5 months to get medical care, which I can get on request.
No, you're comparing a British system or
Canadian
to the U.S.
Yeah.
But no, in my Medicare, I get care just as quickly as you do. See, that Medicare to me is a very good illustration of how you can combine the benefit.
I get Medicare too.
Of course you do. But you shouldn't take Medicare, not with your view of life.
No, be careful. I was, for example, there is a difference between changing the system and opting out. When you opt out, you hurt yourself,
right,
and you do absolutely nothing to the system you don't like.
Right.
What this government is doing, that's what bothers me. You see, there are 3 programs that are they have nothing to do with the game, but they have to do with the rules, and rules are much more difficult to reverse. What are those programs? To federalize education, to socialize medicine, and to have federal energy policy. All 3 are important, but they all, by our Constitution, belong to the states. And I think that's a major change, that you are switching, and this is what our governor made a speech a month ago, even saying that Texas might even want to secede.
Might want to secede.
Yeah, he said it. But those are 3 policies that if he gets them through, you cannot reverse them easily, because that will require the act of Congress and Supreme Court to reverse them. So what you have only one hope: the Supreme Court will find it unconstitutional. Otherwise, you have a very major change. In this case, we become like social democracies of Europe. Is it bad? For some people, not. For some people, yes. But that's a change.
Who are the people that benefit from it being more like a social democracy?
Government bureaucracy.
Only.
Well, not only. You always have people who receive welfare with benefits. People who, we say we have 46 million people without medical care. That's probably true. Although it's not necessarily true, because people who fall below the minimum poverty, below poverty level, they have free medical care in county hospitals. But the problem is you have to wait. But you have to wait in Canada, you have to wait in England. So you provide medical care for 40 million people, less than that, I believe, by punishing 260 million people who have excellent medical care. Now, why do we always talk about...
That's a pretty loaded word, isn't it? Punishing.
Yes,
Rather than asking those who have the capacity to pay for their own care,
to give
assist those who don't have the capacity to pay for their own care. The choice of the word punishing seems to me...
Well, I use the word punishing because it's coercive. It's not by choice.
No, that's true.
And because it's not by choice, sometimes I use words because I like better words, maybe. But I find it difficult to accept that people who have worked, actually 260 million people, have somehow to be ignored. Because we talk only about 40 million who do not have, as if 260 million did not exist. And to me, that's immoral.
What's economics got to do with values?
In our emotions, and I think that's
A lot.
kind of how we're trying to
Because
decide what we're
if I
doing.
say something is worth $20, it means that you value that more than any other bundle that $20 can buy.
One of the new board of cities, or one of the
So
board of
what you're
cities.
talking about is making
So all
decisions.
foster ones
It's all about
pretty- is that-
decision-making, choices.
We all do, all every time. You made a choice to come here.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
Thank
I am delighted.
So am I. Very nice.
It's going to be wonderful. I know it is. It's going to be for
I
posterity.
hope you enjoy the evening.
Oh, it was
When
wonderful.
you
What a-
when you went to Hunters.
What's left for you in your intellectual journey, your path?
I think if the purpose that we have in life is to seek the truth, that I am as far from finding it as I was 40 years ago when I started my career. That's the only honest way of putting it.
Good night. We'll see you tomorrow then.
What the life would be if we knew everything.
See you tomorrow.
It would be empty life.
But are there any particular domains that you are inclined to search out new answers or new ideas or new insights?
I would like to see Dallas Cowboys have a new owner.
That's a good one. That may be a manageable one.